So, ladies and gentlemen, and other non binary folks, welcome. This is the Live at 5 from Kyiv. I'm Peter Alexievich, your host. And in just a moment, we'll be getting to the news. That'll be followed by a Q&A session with those participating in the live. Hey, Fitz. Hey, Cheyenne. Hey, Darlene. Hey, Mel. Hey, Hobo. How's everybody doing tonight? Hey, Ben. Folks are coming in now. Welcome to the peeps. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are. It is just past midnight on July 20th for me, July 19th probably for most of you. It's warm in the UK, is it, Mel? Our heat wave has broken. Yep, Cyril, it is a beautiful 68 degrees outside. What is that, about 20, about 20 maybe? It's a lot of news from London today, Biker73. You are not wrong. Hey, Jay. Louis Love, thanks for sharing the live. Good evening, Annette. How do you do? 26 in the UK. Hey, John Williams. Yeah, no, right, Mad Mike? Seriously, I'm on fucking time tonight. Thank God. Puh. Today was a very productive day. Hey, Anthony. Good evening, HBL John. Hey, Cannonball Cruz. Long time no see. How you doing? Hey, Boogie. Hey, Marilyn. Hey, Marius. Thanks for sharing the live. Fitch, you started another account. What's that one called? Ballbusters Anonymous? 19 in Scotland. Sounds very pleasant. I'm not sure. I don't have a good feel for Celsius, David. Hey, PH. Hey, Jacob Grady. Hey, Julian. Arn, how you doing? Was Ukraine affected by the IT outage regarding CrowdStrike and Microsoft? Annette, I don't have any word on that. Twitter's a cesspool, Cannonball. You're worth more than that. So Annette brings up the CrowdStrike update. Hey, Herb. And we might as well get it out of the way at the top because I didn't really intend to cover it. It's not directly Ukraine related. I'm unaware of any major problems in Ukraine. That's not to say that they don't exist. I see it, Fitz. I see it. Hey, Valley. Hey, BJ. Hey, PT. So, Annette, to the best of my knowledge, at this time, it seems to be agreed that what happened was there was an unexpected event related to a software update to the CrowdStrike application. That update had passed the Microsoft security checks, had passed the integration checks, but for some versions of Windows 10, it caused a blue screen of death error that I guess is I don't want to say it's unrecoverable, but the recovery console doesn't seem to function to repair this issue. Not necessarily, Annette. I mean, I scan the news, right? But I didn't have occasion to try to utilize an ATM today. I didn't have occasion to speak to anybody about an ATM. I don't want to say that because I do not know. I do not know. But wherever that update got installed, they're having real problems, boy. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. That is for sure. Okay. So let's take a look at the news on the subject. Let's start with Great Britain since that's come up already. And there is this major summit that's been happening in England. Hey, Bertie. At the Blenheim Palace, I think it's pronounced, something like that. And there were a lot of strong words in support of Ukraine, but it's worth saying that there was very little change in policy. The one thing that we did see come out of this event that really resonated powerfully with me and is is a move in exactly the right direction is that Keir Starmer's government has reiterated their commitment to let the Ukrainians use the storm shadows on defensive targets inside of Russia, which apparently means, at the very least, that the airfields housing the bombers and attack aircraft that are causing so much trouble with these glide bombs are going to be within range of the storm shadows. And they're going to be fair targets. And it's about time. It's really about time. And so, again, my hat is off to the British. They are leading the way. They were the first to deliver those long-range weapons. They were the first to deliver tanks. They are the first to untie the Ukrainians' hands as they are engaged in this existential fight. A storm shadow is coming, Jody. A storm shadow is coming. Now, in addition, the UK and Ukrainian governments today, the defense ministers signed an agreement that would provide credit support for developing defense capabilities inside of Ukraine. I guess the translation of that from the political would be that England is going to invest in the Ukrainian defense sector. That's what it sounds like to me. Now, Zelensky did something that no foreign leader has done since Bill Clinton did it in '97. He addressed directly the British cabinet at 10 Downing Street. Now, the contents of that discussion are not really known. There was not much commentary on it from 10 Downing Street. But he was in a closed-door session with the cabinet at number 10 this morning. What we did hear were some of the agreements that UK will provide military aid every year until 2030. And so that's a long-term commitment from the UK. There were also discussions of what if Trump wins. And the practical upshot is that Ukraine will keep fighting, according to Zelensky. Zelensky said that if territory loss is the result of Trump's peace plan, we will reject it and continue the fight. Zelensky also has a scheduled call with Trump. That'll be the first time the two have spoken directly in some time. Apparently, much of the discussion of the summit at Blenheim Palace was around more EU aid if Trump wins the election, which I hate to say, I am not as certain that he will lose it as I once was, I have to confess. Now, exactly, Annette, right? Like, it's just like dealing with Putin. You can't trust the bastards. You can't trust them 1 inch, not 1 inch. Now, on that subject, you guys know that this channel exists to disambiguate Russian disinformation, to keep Ukraine in the news, and to serve as an intersection point where people that are interested in doing something for Ukraine can meet and cross-pollinate their activities. Now, something has come up, and it's this Project 2025. And right now, I don't think that there is any greater threat to Ukraine than Project 2025 should Trump be elected. It's a real concern. And understanding it is going to be important for Americans and the world, frankly. To that end, over on my Patreon, I've started deconstructing Project 2025. I'm going to go through the whole 920 pages. I've already done the acknowledgement section and the presidential transition project, which comes before the foreword of the book. So I'm just getting started. The first videos were posted today. For those interested in Project 2025, if you do not yet have a Patreon account, you can get one for free. Just sign up over on Patreon and subscribe as a free member to my channel there. The nature of those videos, they're not TikToks. They're not going to fit on TikTok. They're not going to be shot for TikTok. And so they're going to be here and they're going to be over on YouTube. Now, I expect it's a 920-page document. Assuming that I haven't underestimated the research requirements, I figure it's going to take me about 30 days to get through it. And that's going to mean that production over here on TikTok is less. So please follow me on YouTube, join the Patreon for free, and stay up to date with the Project 2025 updates as we deconstruct it page by page, section by section, chapter by chapter, to better understand just exactly what these folks are thinking and maybe what we can do to stop it. Because it doesn't just need to be stopped, it needs to be disposed of in the ash can of history of bad ideas. The initial impression that I'm getting already is that the folks who wrote Project 2025 still believe in ideas that have long since been dispelled as myths. Outdated thinking. Ideas that have been rejected in the marketplace of ideas. And that's a problem because these people control half the electorate. The Ministry of Digital Transformation here in Kyiv is trying to fundraise to build a new generation of terrestrial drones. So these will be drones, not sea drones, not air drones, but land drones, terrestrial drones. Those drones will be used to evacuate the wounded, to act as active firing positions, fighting in the trenches and on the front lines, supporting soldiers and fighting alongside them. Mine layers and deminers, supplies and logistics, and as one-way robots. And I use the word one-way because I don't like the K word at all. And TikTok, of course, is against the S word. One-way drones gives you an idea of what they're... Right, they go boom. They go boom. Hey, Van. The Economist has reported that Soviet stockpiles are being depleted at breakneck pace. Tanks, armored personnel carriers, and artillery are likely to reach critical depletion points this year. That's according to The Economist. A new piece of shit traitor has surfaced on Telegram. A guy by the name of Ben Stimpson. Anthony, this guy's one of yours. He's a Brit. He's apparently a mercenary who's been fighting with the Donetsk People's Republic since 2014. You know, there was a bunch of Westerners who kind of mistook the Russian covert action in Ukraine back in 2014 as like a Spanish Civil War kind of situation. It was not. It is not. And he appears to be one of these suckers. He has started a Telegram channel. He's been again with the DPR since 2014. And what does he do on his Telegram channel? He helps Brits move to Russia and join the army. I mean, I don't think he's going to get a lot of uptick. I don't think he's going to get a lot of takers. But that's what he's up to. You know, America's got Yaroslav and Scott Ritter and Sasha Meets Russia. Well, now you guys have Ben Stimson. Hey, Richard Hansen. Why is nothing from the bridge on the Dutch TV? Is something happening at the bridge, Bertus? I'm not aware of anything. I'm not aware of any activity at the bridge at this time. It's not to say it's not happening. I'm just not aware of it. Yeah, I'm not aware of anything. Does anybody else know? Hey, Annette, thank you so much. Is Annette still here? Or is she over on another screen? Well, anyway, we'll come back to that. So, hey, Jeff. He's talking about the Crimean Bridge, but I'm not aware of anything happening at the Crimean Bridge. Ursula von der Leyen has been elected to a second term as the EU Commission's, as the EU Commissioner. I'm sorry, as the EU Commission President. She says that she is committed to building an air shield, her words, an air shield over Europe. And a true European defense union. There are some concerns about how this interfaces with NATO. And, does NATO continue doing what it's doing? Does it abandon what it's doing in favor of this centralized European Union defense initiative? It's not clear what that future looks like. But what it does say is that our greatest allies, the people that we are most bound up with economically, historically, and culturally, are concerned that we are about to abandon them. And with good cause. Frankly, with good cause. And they are making preparations to live in a world without us. And that means that what we are seeing is in this generation of xenophobic, isolationist, America First Republicans, an active abandoning of our position as a world leader, as the only superpower that there is. This is stupidity beyond words. This is self-hating masochism of the worst kind, and it should be refuted by every American. Outrageous. For their part, the Chinese and the Russians and the Belarusians seem to be getting together with their Central Asian allies to create a Eurasian security architecture to challenge NATO. Make no mistake, that will be its... If Russia isn't defeated in this war, if it grabs the resources of Ukraine for itself, we are going to see a new polar world where Russia, as a vassal to China, as a kind of mega super authoritarian state, will feel that they have green light to do what they will in the world. And it's going to be a problem. Hey, Annette, thanks for joining the Patreon. I really appreciate it. I literally cannot do this without the Patreon guys. Russian strike today on Mykolaiv unalived 5 civilians, including 1 child. Zelensky says that Poland will help expedite the F-16s, but we don't know how. We don't know what Poland has said. We don't know how they're going to do this. We don't know whether it's a security guarantee or an air defense guarantee or what it might be. It is worth mentioning that Poland and Ukraine were in discussion to shoot down Russian missiles, right? To have Poland shoot down Russian missiles over Ukrainian airspace. That idea was challenged by both Jens Stoltenberg and Olaf Scholz, who both said that NATO countries will not be shooting down Russian missiles. So it's unclear how Poland is going to help with these F-16s, but we'll get updates on that hopefully soon. The Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich has been sentenced to 16 years in Russian prison on espionage charges as a CIA agent. To me, the trial, of course, was held behind closed doors in Yekaterinburg. We have not seen the evidence against Evan, so therefore there is no evidence against Evan. If you're not willing to share the evidence, you don't have any evidence. This appears, by all intents and purposes, to be yet another example of Russia trying to intimidate the West through, as well as internal press and internal opposition against speaking out. The Ukrainian 3rd Assault Brigade took out a Tulip, that's a self-propelled mortar. It's a 240 millimeter mortar. They're huge. We almost might think of them as like a bunker buster. For urban warfare, they can pummel through the most secure defensive positions, right? You got to get through 3 feet of concrete. You want yourself a Tulip. These things cost about $800,000 a piece, and Russia had 40 of them in service at the start of the war. The Ukrainians have destroyed 14 as of today. That leaves 26 still in the field. Now, the Ukrainians seem to be precisely targeting these large guns this week, because in addition to the Tulip, they took out a Giant S, and then up in Belgorod, they took out a brand new 2S Molva. Now, Molva is only a word I ever heard on Seinfeld. But anyway, these Molvas are self-propelled howitzers. And it was taken out with a drone, and they go for about $1 million a piece. It is likely that Russia has only a handful of them in prototypes. This is a brand new system. It is the second one to have appeared on the front line in Ukraine, and it is the second one to have been destroyed. Well done, Ukraine. So the Giant S, the Molva, and the Tulip, all in like the last 36 hours, and in different parts of the front line. Over in the Pokrovsk region, where there has been so much heavy fighting, where the fighting is so intense, and where the Ukrainians are taking hits from those glide bombs, right? The goddamn glide bombs that the Russians have so many of and are so cheap and are so devastating that they're just using them to level city after city after city. Now, one of the attack aircraft, an Su-25, was taken out today on one of its bombing runs. The Su-25, it's believed there were 134 of them in service at the start of the war. If about half of them were flight worthy, let's say about 70, and Ukraine has taken out, if my calculations are correct, today was 34, which would leave roughly, 36 of them, 40, something like 40, let's be generous. Maybe 40 Su-25s are left. A Russian drone attack against an ambulance brigade in Kherson resulted in 2 people being injured, no unalived. So again, it's a war crime to target ambulances. It's a war crime to target an ambulance brigade. It's just a war crime. It's a war crime to bomb a children's hospital, but these bastards do not care. Okay, we talked about that. Disturbing and unprecedented discussion of nuclear proliferation in Europe. Again, one of the consequences of America abnegating its leadership position and leaving Europe, or even letting Europe feel like we might be leaving them to fend for themselves. And this all grows out of this Trumpist, xenophobia, isolationist, America first bullshit. It has the Europeans talking about nuclear deterrence to try to keep Russia intact, or keep Russia under control. We have not seen anything but talk of nuclear disarmament for 30 years. To now see otherwise rational, civilized nations talk about the need for megatons of nuclear devices is disturbing to me, to say the least. It is exactly the wrong direction that our species should be moving in. It's exactly the wrong direction. To me, that is a 20th century solution to a 20th century problem. And revisiting it doesn't make any sense. Not to me, it doesn't. The NATO top commander has said that we should prepare for a long war. Cyberdoc, on this subject, right? The new Cold War, well, it's a hot war, brother. It's a hot war. But the folks in charge over at NATO are worried that it is going to be a long war. And if we're going to avoid it, we've got to untie Ukraine's hands. It's just that simple. I need to make a correction. I misread a note the other day, and I said that Ukraine had exported through May 113 million tons of grain. That is incorrect. It was 1.13 million tons of grain. And if we add the June figure, it brings us up to 1.5 million tons of grain, which is up from 894,000 last year. And so again, I apologize. I didn't see that decimal point when I read it last time. But the correct figure for the first half of the year is 1.5 million tons of food. Well, actually, that's just unprocessed grain. About that much refined flour went out as well. Now, you guys know, right? With the exception of a few close allies and pre-existing contracts to deliver, Russia is not exporting refined oil products. They're not exporting gasoline. They're not exporting diesel. They're keeping it all in-house for their own needs. Now, the export ban was supposed to expire, I think, August 31st, if I'm not mistaken. Interestingly, the Russians have extended it 2 months through October. Now, why would they do that? Well, obviously, they are concerned about their ability to refine enough oil product into gasoline and diesel and jet fuel for themselves. They can't be sharing it. Despite that ban, they are selling gasoline to Iran at a 75% discount. I'll tell you, with friends like that, who needs enemies? Who needs enemies? Now, obviously, the deep discounts are very likely intended to offset the costs of weapons, right? Their down payments on weapons, etc. Let's see. Now, this is interesting. In the last 24 hours, the Freedom of Russia Legion, which we know is fighting in Volchansk, right? But they have hinted that they have other groups inside, or other partisans working inside of Russia. They have taken credit for burning equipment and fuel and ammo at an air base in Perm, for a railway switching station fire in Volgograd. And they haven't taken credit for this one, but all of this happened within 24 hours. In Moscow, an electric locomotive was just burst into flames, stopping rail service for a while and taking out a piece of rail equipment. Now, we don't know that last one was Freedom of Russia Brigade. But the other two they've taken credit for and published video of it on their Telegram channel. So a Freedom of Russia Brigade is keeping things hot, not just in Volchansk, but inside of Russia itself. In Luhansk, it appears, now this is not 100% confirmed at this time, but multiple sources are reporting that in Luhansk, there was an ATACMS strike against an aviation school and helicopter base. Now, again, we don't know how many helicopters were damaged, if any. We don't know what damage was done to the aviation school, but they were targeted. The debris from the ATACMS, get this, has a manufacture date on it of March 2002. Has a manufacture date of March 2002. So those ATACMS are 22 years old and were paid for out of George Bush II's first budget. I mean, that's what we sent to Ukraine. Please. Thanks, PT. Yeah, no, I wasn't aware of anything either. Finally, in Germany, a Russian couple has been found guilty of providing over 110,000 spare parts for Orlan drones to the Russian army in violation of sanctions. The prosecutors asserted that shipping those 110,000 spare parts, millions of dollars worth of Orlan pieces, netted the couple 900,000 euros in income. That's all it takes to betray democracy, undermine Western civilization, and help fund a dictator's war. You can make some real money doing that shit, boy. Unfortunately, they are not going to get to spend it, as he'll be in jail for 6 years while her 1.5-year sentence has been suspended. I think likely they cut a deal where the wife didn't have to go to jail, right? Are we safe, Peter? I don't know. Is anybody safe? What are you talking about? Who are you? BBRT? I don't know what that question means. You know, I have a greater chance of being hit by a bus as a tourist in Manhattan than I do of being hit by a Russian missile strike in Kyiv. Now, that's just statistics. Dutch were never safe from those people. How do they get the drone parts to Russia? Cut off all routes. They haven't, Bobby, right? Because only the countries participating in sanctions are participating. So that means all they had to do was ship them to a third-party country, to some other Russian agent, say somebody in Turkey or in Georgia or in the UAE or Taiwan or I'm sorry, Thailand. And then they would ship them on into Russia. That's my understanding of how that works. Have I seen the air defenses in action? Here in Kyiv? Oh, yeah, man. Yeah. India, Steve Kennedy points out, is a third-party country that's reshipped a lot of shit to Russia. You have a good lawyer. The idea shouldn't be to get Hungary out. The idea should be to separate the criminal, corrupt parts of the Hungarian government from sucking on the tit of Moscow and get the Hungarian people to stand up and refute that shit at the ballot box and get back on track. Just like I don't want to see anybody hurt Donald Trump. Not because I love Trump or have any affection for him, but because I don't want to see anybody hurt, ever. What I want to see with Trump is him firmly rejected at the ballot box by the American people. That's the best thing that could happen. A former MP in Lviv was unalived, could be Nightshade. Oh, right on, Dutch. Hit me up when you're in town. Why is Hungary still in NATO? Because when you sign those kinds of treaties, you don't just back out of them, One guy can't just undo all of that. Yeah, then once, all of his trials are going to be delayed till after the election now. So once the American people reject him at the ballot box, then he can go to jail and do his time. Oh, stop it with that talk, Steve. Nobody would know it was a beautiful planet if we weren't here to appreciate it. Cannonball, I'm unaware of what Hungary's weapons purchases have been. Could be, Bobby. We don't know. Hey, Tony. Good night, Bertus. Hey, Angela. Trumpelstiltskin. Russian fleet has abandoned Crimea. Big win for Ukraine. Yep. Thanks, Trumpelstiltskin. I don't know where they found that. So what's going on, guys? Questions, comments, points of observation, or personal need? Again, I do encourage everybody. I'm really going to put a lot of work into the Deconstructing Project 2025 videos on the Patreon. But they don't really belong here. So they're going to go on the Patreon and then later on YouTube. So, Steve, the bridge has only had one lane left for a year. Maddie, it's the opposite. The EU will heighten support for Ukraine if Donald gets in. They're already doing it just in case he does. Well, sometimes, Dutch, people have personal questions about things here. I've even had people ask me to try to get in touch with relatives that they're unable to get in touch with. Yada, yada. So, yeah. I'm not opposed to entertaining a personal issue. I mean, I talk to you, don't I? Is it okay if we repost Patreon videos on other platforms? Sure, why not? Do it. Go crazy. That 2025 is really a I'm working on it, Bobby. I'm working on it. Thanks, pal. Hey, Nicola. And the crazy Russians are still taking their kids to the beach on Crimea. Yeah, some of them are. Although, if we look at the list of injured, you have the Russian-installed Crimean governor's son. I mean, the people that were on the beach the day that ATACMS got shot down there are not everyday people. They seem to be kind of the families of the highest level occupiers that there are, and the shills of the Kremlin. Kremlin appointees and connected people, one and all. That's who's in Crimea these days. You're funny, Cannonball Cruz. Hey, guys, if you don't know Cannonball Cruz, he's great. Who goes to a beach that has a missile defense system on the beach? Exactly. Not very smart. The ones that are so deeply living inside the bubble, they can't imagine a world where Russia can lose. It doesn't exist for them. It does not exist for them. Just like the movie Jaws. The beach is open, sure. Come on down. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Come on down. Bring the kids. PMSL. Denny Brooks. Iryman. Maximum respect. How you doing? East of Eden. There's a storm a-brewing. Ah, thank you, Nicola. I knew it was familiar. There's a strange pattern of Eastern European nations selling their Soviet tanks to Asian countries. Well, I don't know if that's a strange pattern, right? Like the Eastern European nations have had 30 years to modernize since the end of the Soviet Union. The old Soviet tanks, as we can see from the battlefields of Ukraine, are still, assuming they've been taken care of, are still quite formidable in their own right. The Central Asian nations, they didn't have any tanks, maybe, some of them. And so to be able to pick up these tanks on the cheap and know you're going to get another 20, 30 years out of them, I think it makes perfect sense. And what you're seeing is you're seeing the waves of global modernization happening, right? As the very poorest countries of Central Asia are starting to catch up to where the Eastern European countries were at the end of the Soviet era. Oh, East of Eden is one of your favorite books. A woman there in Kyiv. There are lots of women here in Kyiv, Van. Can you be more specific? We need to let Ukraine hit what they see fit. I agree, Anthony. That is weird. It's Dutch's avatar with Hacky Sack Trav's name next to it. That's weird. What is harder to educate, orcs or maggots? And it's the same difficulty level because they're fact-proof. When you're fact-proof, it's a problem. So Fitz, on the subject of the power, right? You know, pal, I had the choice of going with the cell phone, and then if the power goes out, we fail over to the cell service, we hope anyway. It's worked before. And the battery packs. It's all ready to go, but I decided not to use it because the power's been on for almost 48 hours straight. 48 hours. Dude, I was so productive today, I can't even tell you. I could have been all pessimistic and been like, oh, well, then it's bound to happen during this live. But no, I chose optimism, brother. I said, no, the power is going to stay on. It's going to stay on through this. I'm going to get through this live without losing power. And so far, so good. Thailand bought Ukraine's T-84s, Malaysia buys Polish P-91s, and Pakistan bought Ukraine's T-80s. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Okay, that's the end of you. You know, I felt really bad because a guy I really liked who made lots of comments on the channel, who was a member of the Patreon. I mean, I really liked him. And then the other day, boy, his anti-Semitism started showing, and he was slinging the Zionism bullshit around like crazy. So his Patreon is refunded. He is blocked, and I feel bad about it. Oh, and also I can't afford to give up Patreon members, but I'm not having it. I am not having it. Keep your race. If you're racist, either stay the fuck away from here or keep it to yourself. I don't want to hear it. That's why we're in this mess, that kind of bullshit. Do I think that Russian terrorism has peaked? No. The peak of Russian terrorism will be Russian against Russian after the collapse. That's where the real violence. And not to say that there isn't real violence here in Ukraine. There is real violence here in Ukraine. But I don't think it's going to be anything like the brutality and chaos that we are going to see in a post-Putin world inside of Russia. Hey, Stuart Burnside, how you doing? Would Ukraine be under the NATO nuclear umbrella? Don't know, Mel. That's an interesting question. I have not heard any discussion of that at all. So I do not know. Hey, Steve-O. Hey, Daniel Ballard. Okay. Yeah, definitely not, pal. Definitely not. But thanks. I guess that's nice to hear. Goes around, comes around. Stuart, that is really an understatement, man. I mean, that is really an understatement. From what I hear, a buddy of mine stopped by today with some apples from his mother's house. And he looks like death warmed over. He looks exhausted beyond words. And thin. No, it's a bad situation up there. Oh, Stuart. Stuart, that's who that is. Hey, how you doing, pal? I bet. No idea when we're going to see F-16s. So, Adis has a really interesting question. And that is, as a citizen of the United States, how has my view about Russia changed in a few years? Until a few months before the full-scale invasion, even in the crisis of 2021, I would say that I never thought about Russia at all. I just never thought about it. If I thought about Russia, it was about caviar or the ballet or Solzhenitsyn or Dostoevsky or Tolstoy or Chekhov, in some kind of cultural context. But not about the real Russia. I didn't know shit about Russia. My view has gone from one of casual disregard and neglect, like I couldn't give a fuck, to one of unbridled contempt, disgust, anger, revulsion. Russia is a corrosive kind of cancer that is actively eating at the foundations of Western civilization in order to line the pockets of a few oligarchs at the expense of 140 million Russians and their impoverishment. It is an obscenity that must be cleansed from the earth. I would say that's how my thinking has changed. Yeah, David, you see that? They're using old prop planes to shoot down drones. And you know, Dutch, you might be right. The first F-16 missions might have been flown in Ukraine. We just don't know it yet. Or that could be disinformation to keep the Russians off balance. What we do know, I didn't hear anything about it today, but for the prior 10 days, in a row, the Russians were targeting every airfield in Western Ukraine that could possibly host an F-16. So the Russians must think they're here. The Russians must think they're here. Whether they are or not is another question. Well, Cannonball Crews, these are basically Spitfires. You know the little short-bodied World War II two-engine propeller plane? Or no, wait. I guess they have both. They have single-engine props where the props in the front, and then they have a couple of twin engines where the props are on the wings. Me too, Mel. I am not leaving this country until I have picnicked on a Crimean beach. So, Adis, if you're a Lithuanian, my guess would be that you understood all of this before. And you may even have been one of those people in the Baltics who have been screaming at us in the West to pay attention that this is what Russia is. I can only tell you that you're right. I agree with you. And it took my coming to Ukraine to learn this. And I do everything I can now to add my voice to yours as we scream at the West that this is the reality. You know, Mel, I don't encourage anybody to come here as a tourist. If you're coming, come with a mission like Stuart and David and Tony and Yana and all those folks. Yeah, Flippy. Oh, Flippy, I didn't get in touch with you yet. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I promise. Here, I'm going to write it down right now. I have a pen. Got it. Okay, how are we doing on time? It's 6 minutes to the top of the hour. So I want to thank Lars from Encino Tech, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. I think that's right. I think it's Lars tonight. I'm sorry. Well, now it is. So it's Lars from Encino Tech is the sponsor of tonight's live. Thank you, Lars. I could not do this without you. I want to thank the moderator team, best moderator team on the Tickety Talk. Cheyenne, Vanetta, PT, John Williams, Jay, and Travis. I want to thank Nightshade, who runs the Peter's Peeps group over on the Book of Faces, and Lars, who has the Discord server. And then I want to thank Vanetta, who now has a new group over on Facebook to support the 2025 project. It's called Dismantle Project 2025. And so maybe take a look over there, or if we're friends on Facebook, shoot me a message and I'll send you a link. And if we're not friends on Facebook, make us friends on Facebook. If you haven't joined the Patreon yet, please do. My income did drop this month. If anybody can help with that, like Annette did tonight, thank you, Annette. Please consider joining the Patreon. And for those who are not in a position to join the paid Patreon, please join the Patreon for free and follow the Project 2025 videos. I hope that I'm going to make some small contribution to that discussion. And I intend to learn a lot as I read through it. Bah, ha, 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 ha. Prime Minister, why would I take it for the UK? Why would I take a demotion? All right. It's late. I'm tired. So I'm going to call it a day. Ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate everybody out there being there for me. And because you are there for me, I can be here for you. And I hope that it's valuable to you. It is certainly the most rewarding work that I have done in 30 years. There's no doubt about it. All right. Make it a great evening. I'll talk to you later.